It was a 6th grade, high school. She had about 80 children. She was in one corner trying to make the class sit down, and these 80 kids were at each other, running behind each other with benches in their hands and chairs in their hands. Shilpa created this vision where she said that I'm going to push kids for literacy, and I'm going to push for systems and structures that make this class a safe space to begin with. For the culture, she created this economy system. She read a couple of books, Teach Like Your Hair's on Fire, Teaching Like a Champion, and she spoke to a couple of TIJ fellows, and she created this economy system very similar to the one in Teach Like Your Hair's on Fire, where she said, "Ki, let's distribute the responsibility of the class in the class." I think in 2 months, that class moved from being absolutely destructive to being compliant and on task. When we realized that we may or may not transition into grade 8 and grade 9 in high schools in Hyderabad and government schools, I think Shilpa decided to shift her goals from being 60% GLA, 55% here, this person there. I think she shifted that to, are my children going to excel without me? Not just in values, but also in academics. She said, we are only going to read textbook from today. Can you access the textbook? Can you understand and decode the textbook? And can you then analyze and articulate it back in an answer? And I think her push for this sort of changed her outcomes drastically, because then literacy didn't just stop at English. It started flowing into her integration of writing rubric with her social classes, with lead to speak. One of the strongest traits of Shilpa is her continuous learning and her push for personal mastery. So in the first month of when she was trying to get the class to set up, creating that culture, the first thing she did was deepen her knowledge. She was always prepared with her own study of what builds culture, or what are some things she can implement to build that culture. And her push for constantly deepening her knowledge sort of led her to understand better how this particular system that's given in a book and my children, where they stand, and how can I make the best of both. My role throughout this was to make sure that we enhance this strength of hers. When I realized that her push to know more from people or books or read is high, that's what I did with her. Every time I would find a resource on how to teach higher grade kids, I would just send it to her, and I would see some strategy from that implemented in her. She was always great at academics, and the culture was about learning. And this would happen in Shilpa's class, and the same class when Uday would take, it would be, there would be so much joy in the class, so much passion, lesser structures, but like more investment. There was an incident in class, and the entire class went to, Uday and Shalmali for another of her co-fellows for the solution. They went to someone else for advice. They came to her for consequences. And I think because she wanted to be someone who can coach them through their adolescent issues, she realized she needs to build in more of her share. And I think currently they stand at a place where they are extremely open to each other. The class and Shilpa are extremely open to each other. Optimism is a value the class insisted Shilpa keeps, because that's the value she needs to work on. To be positive, to be optimistic. And I think that's co-learning is what is currently happening between the class and Shilpa. I think that's where the relation currently stands. They're sort of partners in each other's journey. One of the LCs that we did last year, it was where the school team sat together and gave each other feedback. And I think this came out really strongly that she sort of leads the way, but she, so far till January of her first year, she had not really made partners out of her parents or her children or even her school team. So I think in that LC, everybody really opened up and shared this with Shilpa, and I think that had a great impact on her. Because going forward, she started making conscious efforts of being more open, of sharing what her own struggles with things are. Because she taught in government school, and she's seen that through this 1 year, they sort of built a technology room in their school where there's a projector, there's this, there's that, and they used a lot of math games to get children to do better. I think her strong belief that given the volume of children that we have, bringing in technology would sort of accelerate how our children are learning in the country today. I think that's the reason why she's right now looking at joining technology in education. and I think that's where she's headed right now.